IBC, the International Broadcasting Convention in Amsterdam. And together with me in our Tinkerlist booth is our friend Tony Gregory, a highly experienced live and multimedia director and content maker. Welcome to our booth. Thank you very much. Thank you too. Thank you for making some time for us.
Always make time for
I saw your post on LinkedIn about the magazines and the distinction between the magazines for men and women. And honestly, this was one of the first things that I noticed arriving to the IBC. How many men there are here.
Do you know, every year, as I said in that LinkedIn post, every year I come to IBC and I have two thoughts. What are we going to see that's new from a tech point of view? You know, and every year that evolves, and I've been coming to IBC for so long, and every year you kind of think, okay, is the diversity of our industry going to change at all? Or am I just going to see the same sea of, you know, old white men when I walk into all the halls? You know, there's a bit of change, but there really isn't very much, is there?
So still a long way to go.
Well, look, how far are we from a gender balance, for example? I mean, it's just, you know, most people in OB trucks and studios and technical roles and whatever are male. For goodness sake, you know, we've really got to sort that out.
Well, hopefully next year it's going to be better.
Yep. But the thing you mentioned that I put in the post about the magazine stand at Schiphol Airport, I walk past that same thing every time I come to IBC. And for about 10 or 12 years, I've noticed it says man and Frau, is it? How's that how you say it in Dutch, right? And then, of course, as you would expect, you know, if you're going to put man and Frau above magazines, what's underneath? You know, and there's the kind of sport and tech and whatever under man, and under Frau is all kind of, you know,
the beauty, the
horses,
gardening,
beauty, kind of whatever. And this year, there was progress, because under Frau was Wired magazine, New Scientist, and Scientific American. So I thought, you know what, this is a step in the right direction.
It's just one small step. And
exactly, but we have got to sort out gender balance and diversity.
Yeah, indeed. But I did see there's some talks already during the IBC about the inclusivity or LGBTQ+ community. Have you managed to?
Yeah, there is some progress, and there's the whole RISE movement, which is about getting young women into the industry and so on, which is doing fantastic work. And I think every company is aware of it, right? Every company is aware not just of their environmental considerations, but their people considerations. And as I understand it, there's some new reporting laws that the EU are bringing in 2024. So people are going to have to be more transparent about how human-centric are they as an organisation, how you know, how they're doing on carbon emissions and so on. And I think actually the reporting is a good first step, because it makes people think about it, it makes people talk about it. So I think things are, look, we're going in the right direction, it's
slowly,
just way
surely.
too slow.
Yeah, all right. Well, let's maybe talk Cuez.
Okay.
If you could maybe explain in your own words the difference between Cuez and Tinkerlist, what's new?
The most obvious thing that's new for me, and I should say, I was using Tinkerlist for a long, long time on a diverse range of shows. I have not used Cuez as much as I've used Tinkerlist, right? So I'm probably still going to be discovering new little things for a little while. The first and most obvious thing is that it's much more intuitive. Use of colour, layout of things, you get a much faster, at-a-glance overview of what is my show and where am I, compared to Tinkerlist. So definitely the user interface is much more intuitive, fresher, and I think that I don't have the vocabulary for this, but your sort of understanding of, at a glance, what am I doing and where am I is much faster.
Yeah, I do agree. I do prefer the colors of Cuez as well, and I feel I do agree also that it's much more intuitive and it's very user-friendly. And why do you think it is important that the industry adapts to and adopts these new technologies like Cuez?
Well, for lots of reasons, really, because the barrier to entry of our industry has always been you know, a technical knowledge or a process knowledge, you know, or it's taken a long time to train as a production assistant before you are allowed to be a production assistant on a live show. because of protocols and so on, and no one was allowed to be a PA on a live show at the BBC unless they'd done the BBC PA training course, and there aren't enough places. And whereas as the technology becomes more intuitive, the user interfaces are much more recognizable from what we're used to every day on our computers and devices and smartphones. In a way, that takes away sort of barriers of entry, right? So it means that you don't need to be an expert in a specific process or piece of technology in order to do the job. So if you like, you could argue it has a democratizing effect, because it means sort of more people do it, anyone can do it, and that's important. The other thing is, frankly, that assistive software is what we expect these days. And I switch on my streaming service, I expect the assistive software to save me a bit of time and actually put some sensible recommendations in front of me. I don't have time to go and search 17 websites for airlines. I'm just going to go to, the two main aggregating sites that you go to for flight information. And I think we just expect it with everything we do. And the production process has been pretty slow to that party, generally. So assistive software is what we're going to need. We've all got to all of us are having to do more in less time, because those are the circumstances in which we're working. And so we need assistive software to get us through that, to help. And it'll also mean we can do things that we previously couldn't do, because it leverages complexity. So we can be more adventurous, more creative.
And also saves a lot of time, because you don't need a lot of training to start using
Absolutely.
the platform, of course.
Absolutely. It really reduces the barrier to entry, and anyone can do it.
Yeah, even I, with having no technical experience, can use the platform, and I find it very fascinating. And although it seemed very scary at the very beginning, it's quite intuitive, as you mentioned. And
but the skills it doesn't replace are the creative skills, the storytelling skills, the writing skills, the ability to make a compelling show and tell a great story in a good way or an interesting way. And in a sense, what it does is it takes the friction out of those processes so that you can be more creative. And we shouldn't forget that none of the assistive software, and even indeed AI, in all the stuff it's going to help us with, it can't do the things that we humans do, and that is feel stuff and tell a great story.
Yeah, there is still a human touch to every technology and any
there has to be,
content that we produce.
Look, when the sequencer was invented, it didn't write great new pop tunes. It still needed people to write the songs. It was just a great tool to help them do it.
So would you say then technologies like Cuez enhance creativity and also productivity in the event production or live TV production?
Yeah, I mean, what all this assistive software does, and Cuez does it very, very well, is it just makes it faster to do the stuff you hate doing, so you can spend more time on the stuff you love doing, being creative, coming up with ideas, changing the script until your show's better, being more reactive. You think about the stuff it takes away from you, right? When we used to make television shows a few decades ago, we would do scripts and rundowns with typewriters, right? There were people whose only job was to sit there for a whole day typing a new page of a rundown, because the producer had swapped item 9 and 17, and then it would take someone an hour and a half to retype that page.
It's really wasting time.
Well, but look at the friction in that creative process, right? To just change 2 ideas of a rundown, someone's got to sit there and type it for an hour and a half. And what the assistive software does is it takes that friction away, so that you can really focus not on the process, but on the purpose of what you're doing, telling that great story.
Well, as we already discovered, Cuez is very useful for TV and event production, but what about educational environments? Because I know you teach at a university. Can we use Cuez to teach people and to show them how easy it is to actually produce a TV show?
Sure, absolutely. And I train live production skills as part of the Media Technology Bachelor course at the St. Pölten Fachhochschule, or Applied Science University in St. Pölten in Austria. And we teach live production skills in a very short period of time. So I get students at the beginning of the process who understand some of the roles in studio, so we talk them through the theory of a multi-camera production, what the roles are, and then by the end of their 13, 14 hours over 5 lectures with me, they are making a live TV show.
Wow, that's quite
Now,
impressive.
in order to do that, they've got to build a rundown, they've got to build a script. And so for the last few years doing that, we've given them Tinkerlist to do that on. And what's absolutely incredible is I don't have time in my lectures to really explain how the software works. But you just give it to the students and you say, look, this is how you build a rundown, this is how you do this. You have a play.
They can figure it out.
And they just figure it out. Which I have to say is quite the opposite if you're working on a production where you've got a script supervisor who's maybe been in the industry some decades, and the conversion to electronic rundown software is perhaps not as fast, shall we say, being kind. But the transition from Tinkerlist to Cuez, I've yet to do as part of these lectures at the university, because the last time we ran that module was last March, so it will be Cuez next March. And I'm looking forward to that because that's going to be one of my opportunities to really
Explore
get to
the
know
platform,
it and see what more we can do. Yeah.
And so having used Tinkerlist for a long time, is there anything that you would like to see in the new platform Cuez? Maybe any new features or
Well,
something that is still missing?
yeah, I mean, it would be good if it made the coffee.
Well, we're going to work on that.
Yeah,
we're going to work
I think
on
you
that.
should. I think the direction of travel for all the tech is the sort of synergistic connections between tech, right? So leveraging APIs, not just buying separate bits of tech, but getting them to talk to each other so that it does some of the stuff you don't have to do, whether it's exporting or just passing information on to other parts of the system that need it. If you look at how we make a live show, or any kind of TV show in a way, from the whole life cycle. So the very beginning of that is the ideation phase. I've had my idea for a TV show, this is what it's going to be. Then through your research and development phase, excuse me, pre-production, production, post-production, and so on. Through that whole chain, you are constantly remaking the same decisions, cutting and pasting information from your original PowerPoint around the show. Now I'm going to put it into the Word document because that's going to become my script. And we are just moving information around all these different places, having to redo the same decisions, retype the same sentences. And software like Cuez takes away a lot of that in the production process. I think the growth area is how do we then grow that into post-production? How do we use the metadata that we've got from studio combined with the metadata we've got in the script and the rundown to actually then intelligently do some of the next decision making for us? So for example, if I've got my media and I've got my rundown, perhaps AI can look at that and go, now I know how to edit this together because I'm just going to read your script. So by combining these things and building them together is where we'll get more efficiency.
Yeah, there's always room to grow and improve, of course. And
Sure.
we will continue working on improving the platform. Well, Tony, thank you very much for joining us in our studio.
It's always a pleasure.
It was a pleasure for me too. And thank you everyone for joining us today, and we'll see you next year. Bye for now.